Dr. Lindsay Hu and Shu Yi Zhou, thank you so much for joining us. If both of you would like to spend some time introducing yourselves, maybe Dr. Lindsay, we can start with you, and we can just go alphabetically, and then for the next 15 minutes, you could just speak about your life, your experiences, and then you can offer any advice, and then we can hear from Shu Yi.
Sounds good. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and certainly thank you, Aspire, for holding this panel discussion. I'm formerly a professor of teacher education, and I'm currently spending my time writing a book on women of color, and I'm trying to understand how they live the highest and truest version of themselves. I'm a mom of 3 young children, and that's me in a nutshell. So Julie, you wanted me to just sort of talk about my own life experience, or to just dispense some advice, or?
Whatever you feel is best for you. If you want to just, wherever you'd like to start.
Okay, sure. I guess if it's okay with you, I could maybe pick one of the questions and just sort of speak from that. I'm assuming that everyone here is in the process of potentially applying for college, or maybe you've already applied and you're preparing to attend potentially in the fall. You know, I guess the one thing that I would want all of you to know is that, and I'm sure you already know this, that this is an incredibly exciting time. I know that the larger context of the current environment is that we are obviously in the middle of a pandemic. We have the Black Lives Matter movement going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty that's, I'm assuming, potentially surrounding maybe your decision making of where to go and when to go to college. The one thing that I would want to say to all of you is to really, I would encourage all of you to look at this as a joyous time, a positive time. This is an opportunity to really think about how these last few weeks and potentially these last few months can actually manifest into the decisions you make around college. You cannot undo what you've experienced in these last few weeks, these last few months. You cannot unlearn what you have learned in these last few weeks and last few months. And so really you have this amazing opportunity to think about how you can matriculate that into your future decision making as you think about these, these exciting next steps for yourself. I'm just sort of scanning the questions, Julia. So, one of the first question that's at the top of the list is, growing up, what kind of messaging did I hear about college? Essentially that I would go, period. This came from a variety of sources: my parents, my school, my community, and the activities that I enrolled in, or was frankly made to enroll in by my parents. Were framed from this perspective of, this will build your college acceptance resume. My parents are both college educated, and we would really talk about how life really, or when we would talk about life, we would talk about it from the perspective of, life really begins after college, because Lindsay, you're going to college. And so that was really instilled in me early on. And so, yeah, so college was never certainly a question.
Should I take the mic, or do you want to continue, Lindsay?
Go right ahead.
Are you sure? I definitely don't want to.
No, go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shu Yi. I am the Cross-Disciplinary Program Manager at Yale Young Global Scholars, a pre-collegiate high school summer program at Yale University. And just a quick background about myself. I know my bio. I did say that I was homeless, and that's definitely, homelessness has been such a huge factor when it comes to applying to college for me, because I wanted to escape my current reality at the time, and not having a roof over my head, right, with my family, or at least a permanent roof over my head. And I feel like when it comes to resilience, that's something that I feel like a lot of Asian Americans embody, especially the history of Asian Americans in America. And as now I'm in a position where I am reading, I am also in college admissions, I'm in admissions for our program. I realized that a lot of what students think will matter in admissions when it comes to perspective-wise, I get 4.0s across my desk every day. Sorry, no, not every day, but during the admissions season. And the other thing is that these students believe that, a lot of students believe that if they join every other extracurricular and they have their hands in everything and like anything and everything, that this is like the secret sauce to getting into an Ivy, or even getting into like Stanford or any of these colleges. And the one thing that I look for, at least this is for me, it's resilience. And how much do you want to contribute to your community? How much do you want to contribute to the globe? And echoing Lindsay, we're currently in the middle of the pandemic. And I don't know if you're currently a sophomore and you're thinking about your future years, or you're a junior and next year's senior year. Use it to your advantage. What Lindsay says when it comes to harnessing the pandemic as a positive source, that is really, really helpful. And this goes into my story of college. My parents didn't go to college. I'm actually the first one to even go to middle school in my family, right? It was especially hard, and I faced this thing called the hidden curriculum, in which all my peers were privy to. I didn't know what office hours were. I didn't know what a syllabus was. You have to fill out your FAFSA every year. It was just this hidden set of rules that I didn't even know. For spring break, while my friends were planning, like, should we go to Cancun, Mexico, or should we go to Daytona Beach, Florida? For me, it was, where can I stay? My mom is staying with a relative in a 1-bedroom apartment for like a 10-member household. I can't stay there. So when it comes to your college apps, resiliency and the qualities that you can't quantify, right? Your GPA can't tell me how kind you are. Your GPA can't tell me how compassionate you are. And the other thing, honestly, that was really hard, that I had to face is that, and I'm still learning, is that the ranking of your college and anything that's quantifiable. And once again, this is my own experience as an Asian American woman, is that how much you weigh, how much money are you going to make, what major are you going to choose, and how much money is that major going to make you? What's your GPA? Everything that is like a stamp on my forehead of, this is how amazing of a human being you are. But in reality, I didn't check off any of those lists. I went to the University of Albany. It is a state university in New York, and I thought throughout my college days that, oh my gosh, I'm so down. I go to a public university. My friends are at like Stanford and Ivies, and I'm at this, and in reality, there are so many hidden obstacles that I had to go through that my friends might not have to go through. And so they had privileges that I didn't. But on the surface, because we went to the same school, it looked like we were all equal. So please don't let the ranking of universities, please don't let the number on your transcript dictate who you are as a person, because you're so much more than that. And as somebody who went to a state school and struggled so hard throughout college because I didn't have a guide, I actually graduated college with 2.7 GPA, right? It was so hard for me to go through college. I majored in bio because in life, my mom was like, you can be 3 things in life: a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure. I thought I was a failure for the longest time. I didn't like law, so I'm like, I guess I'll be a doctor. So it was extremely hard for me in college, and so I would honestly urge you to use your resources. You have resources like Aspire when you get to college, or use your resources like the Writing Center and the Career Center and all these centers, because if you don't reach out, if you don't ask, you'll never know.
I'm just curious to know where everybody is in terms of their college trajectory. Are you seniors waiting to make decisions around where to go, or are you earlier in your sort of application process? Are you freshman, sophomore?
I graduated senior year and I'm entering college freshman year.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joanna. Thanks, Michelle.
I also just graduated senior year and I'm attending UMass Boston in the fall as a nursing major.
Oh,
Congratulations.
I already started college, but I wanted to be on the call just to like maybe gain some clarity and like on how to, because I didn't do so well in college, so I'm like doing a gap year program now, but I wanted to be here to be able to like take in some notes and such.
Great. Thank you.
I was at UMass Boston as well.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
So are the rest of you? Oh, go ahead, Hazel.
Sorry, I'm a rising senior and I'm just about to start the process.
Exciting, exciting. Wonderful. I think it's incredibly helpful just to hear about where all of you are in your trajectory, so that just sort of helps us understand how to more strategically maybe answer your questions. Would it be okay to, I mean, we're such a small group. Julie, would it be okay maybe to take some questions from the group? And
Yes, of course. We can start doing that as well if that's what you're more comfortable with. What I said before was just like a sort of guidelines, but if it's going more towards questions, we can do Q&A.
Yeah. And also, I know that there should be a raise hand function. I know that sometimes it gets really hard when you have a question and someone else has a question, you just talk with one another. If you, for those who are a little new to Zoom, if you hit participants on the bottom toolbox, a screen should pop up, and then there should be a raise hand function like this. Can everyone see me raising my hand? Okay, perfect. And the other thing is, I just want to oh, Joanna, did you want to say something?
I was just trying to figure out how to do the raise hand thing. All I see was like the thumbs up and the clapping.
Oh, maybe we can try thumbs up instead. It looks like it's a little easier from reactions.
I see it. I see it.
I think thumbs up might also be a pretty good way as well. So either or, we have options.
Okay.
or you can just raise your hand. We're so small.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, and I feel like I absolutely love smaller conversations because it really allows for more intimate and deep dive discussions, right? And please utilize Lindsay and I in our experience to answer any and all questions. And Lindsay also went to grad school too. So for those of you who are interested in questions, definitely direct them to her.
Michelle, you have
I have a question. Hi guys. So I am old. I've been through college, but sorry.
You're
so
not old compared to me.
But you know, so I'm big on you know, intergenerational communication, and so you know, Shu Yi, I know you talked. I read a little bit about your blurb beforehand. I know that you know you've experienced you know, conflict with your parents. Lindsay, I know that you know, you're a mom. And so, you know, I'm also just thinking in terms of, you know, for the young high school girls in our audience, you know, those things that you had mentioned before of like GPA, how much money you're going to make, you know, all of these things that kind of like define who you are so valued by parents, right? And the expectations are so high. Do you have any maybe communication tips or coping strategies that can kind of help young girls to, you know, deal with the expectations and maybe explain to their parents, you know, admissions looks for a well-rounded, resilient person these days, and, you know, help them see the bigger picture, because of course, our parents come from totally different, you know, worlds and expectations from us. So yeah, how do you manage that dynamic?
Yeah.
Lindsay, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Shu Yi.
Are you? I feel like, gosh, this is a very, very complex question, because each person's familial ties are very different, and familial relationships. My mom at one point, she is very, very on the elitist mindset, right? Where it's just like, if you don't make an Ivy, you're a failure. And I feel like after I told her how I felt, and after when she saw how unhappy I was as a bio major, I was very, very blessed, in which she sat me down. She's like, why are you unhappy? Like, this is supposed to make you happy. The mold that I have set for you, it's set for financial freedom, in which we do not have. And so why are you not just, why aren't you happy? And then she would go into like a when I was your age entire spiel, and it would just make me feel worse. I feel like when it comes to communicating with your parents, honesty and authenticity is very, very important. The one thing that we can't promise is if they'll listen, right? But the one thing that you can do is that you can also listen to your parents and try to understand and empathize where they're coming from. And from my own experience, and I can only tell you what I did, it's that I graduated with my human bio degree. I graduated with high anxiety, high depression, because I'm just like, who the heck is going to hire a 2.7, right? Because when you graduate, your GPA is what matters a lot, because you don't have much work experience. You're straight out of college. So what I did was that my mom really had to see me through a lot, in which she was really disappointed in. I realized that I love the world of education. I'm mostly interested in serving underrepresented students, so students of color, females in STEM, so any disadvantaged, low socioeconomic status students, like any disadvantaged groups in the higher education setting. And at first she's just like, so you're going to be poor? And I'm like, you know what, Mom? If I'm going to be happy doing it, then so be it. She saw me work for $8 an hour when I was a preschool teacher right out of college, while my classmates were making a lot more as software engineers and whatnot. She saw me work at a nonprofit for also very little money too. And I feel like 7 years later, here I am at Yale, I feel like that's when she finally understood. But it's really hard, because I really wish that my mom understood that I was just as happy and accomplished working for $8 an hour, working at my nonprofit, and now being here at Yale. And my personal experience is that I was a lot more happier than my classmates who were forced to do something that their parents wanted them to do. And till this day, they still felt very, very caged. And once again, each person's parental and or guardians' relationships are very different. And my mom came around, but it took so much time. And honestly, counseling helps so much. I know in the Asian community, we're just, at first I'm like, I'm not crazy. Why do you go to a therapist? But my friends that were like, mental health is so important. And as someone who's a high achiever, I'm just like, if I got through my childhood, if I got through this, I can get through this myself. No, that's not true. You need an outlet to process your emotions, to process your feelings, and also to actually feel. And so that's how I had to navigate the relationship with my mom.
Thank you, Shu Yi. I think that, Michelle, much of what Shu Yi is talking about really resonates with my own experience as well. As I shared earlier, I have 3 young kids. I'm almost 40 years old, and it's something that, just meeting and or exceeding my parents' expectations and having that intergenerational conversation is something that at my age, I still really struggle with. I want to make my parents proud, and there's nothing wrong with that. One of the things that I have come to understand is, at the end of the day, it's so important for me to be happy, and to be selfish with that. to be able to define what I want to do on my own terms and to do that unapologetically. It has taken me so long to come to that and to actually say that out loud, Michelle. And I think that one of the things that really helped me was just sitting down and honestly just writing that, writing like, what do I want? Like, even having the conversation with my parents and telling them that I don't want to pursue, a faculty position anymore because it makes me unhappy and I want to do, this writing gig and it's not making me any money right now, but hopefully someday, but that's not the reason why I'm pursuing it. I mean, that's a really difficult conversation for my very Chinese parents. And so, but I think that I would definitely agree with Shu. At the end of the day, it's so important for your own mental health and for your own happiness to lay out what you want. And I think that all of you girls are in such an exciting point in your life because nobody ever said that to me when I was preparing to go to college or as I was going through. No one ever said that. No one ever said that, Lindsay, you have the right to be happy. You have the right to pursue what you want to pursue on your own terms. And if it doesn't make you, if you're not, the CEO of X company, and if you're not making a 19-figure salary, that's okay. That's not what defines us. And it has truthfully, it's taken me and it's something that I still have a conversation with myself in my own head. But yeah, that's just something that I have really come to understand. And I am happier at this point in my life, just knowing that this is the trajectory that I want for myself. It is not necessarily what the expectation that was placed upon me. And that's okay to not pursue that expectation. So it's not an easy conversation. It really isn't. And I think that any person would potentially say that to you, no matter what, race, ethnicity that they are. It's just not an easy conversation to look at your parents and say, look, I know you raised me. I know you set these expectations. I know you put all these hopes and dreams in me or place that upon me, but that's just not truly in my heart what I want. So be selfish with what you want. Okay.
Can I just piggyback off you real quick, Lindsay? Oh gosh, giving yourself permission is one of the most freeing things I have ever done for myself. Because when you're just constantly chasing a bar that just keeps going up, right? And Asian parents they're very practical. They're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? I read a Medium article about an Asian male. He went to Oxford for his bachelor's and then went to like Harvard for his master's. And then now his mom's like, what about her PhD? And he's like, I don't want a PhD. And she wants to prestige her son to want to have a PhD from Cambridge. He didn't get in. And even with these titles from these elite institutions, he was miserable. And so because of that, titles don't mean anything. And I can promise you that this is 100% true. I thought that when I finally got here to an Ivy, I'm just going to be so confident now, and I'm just going to it's going to be all great. And I realized that I've been here for a year and I'm still the same person. I am still very, I like to crack really bad dad jokes. I'm still the same person. I am still down to earth. I'm still humble, and it didn't change me at all. So the sooner that you realize that these fancy titles, this money and everything that what a lot of traditional Asian parents think of as success isn't your definition of success, you have to redefine it. And the other thing is expectations, like Lindsay says. As an Asian American woman, we're expected to, we're expected to, like, my mom, every time I come home, she's like, you gained weight, did you get fat? And I'm just like, Mom, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, right? I video call you for 2 seconds, and out of nowhere, the first thing you comment is about my weight. We have to be smart, but also, like, not, we have to be smart, but at the same time, pursue a career, but also, at least from my mom, she's like, when are you gonna have kids? I'm just like, Mom, I just need you to just calm down for a little bit, because these expectations that you set for me are just so wild, and I spent so much time chasing and checking off this checklist that my mom has made me, and when I thought that she finally is just like done, she's like, nope, but wait, there's more. So please redefine success for yourself and what you truly believe success is. And you might surprise yourself, right? And even if your definition of success aligns with what your parents say, that's okay. Because as long as you are happy, that's what truly counts. At the end of the day, you're the one that's living your life, not anybody else's. I think we have a question from Makara about how to deal with controlling parents non-academically, especially when you're in college and you are legally and you're.
But can I just ask it?
Oh yeah, sure.
I don't think it can be answered really, but so my parents are more strict on my life instead of the academic part. I think they're not really strict on the academic part because they don't know it a lot, so they can't really do anything. But when it comes to the life part, I see I guess they're just scared because America's so new to them and they came from different countries. So when we get exposed to different talks, or I try to talk to them about something, they're conservative. But anyways, they are strict about just always wanting to keep me inside and being afraid to let me do stuff on my own, maybe get a job, maybe go to a different club, maybe see people, meet people, because the more people you meet, the more resources, but they don't see that because they're scared. So when I think of college, I think you're legally allowed to do anything you want now. You're an adult, but they still might be controlling because they are always going to be your parent. And I just think what if when I do become an adult, right now I'm a sophomore, I'm going to be junior. When I become an adult and then I have the choice, but I'm still scared because it's they've always controlled me. So I don't know, will I have choice to do what I do? Yeah.
Lindsay, do you want to start answering her questions? And then if she comes back, she can continue since you're a mama bear.
Yeah, I'm back.
Makara, and I hope I'm saying that correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But just to sort of paraphrase, just so I understand, or maybe I should paraphrase. Okay, because I don't know if mom and dad are in the room. It sounds as though you're trying to understand how to, when you step into the college world, how do you sort of manage the dynamics of your newly found independence and balancing that with very overprotective parents. I think that what I have found in my own experience is that even at almost 40, my parents are still trying to tell me what to do in my life. And I mean that from a good place. And one of the things that I have learned is that, and I definitely have I had and still have overprotective parents. And so I understand, I was never allowed to spend the night at my friend's house. I had a curfew. It was earlier than all of my friends. I had a curfew. My brothers didn't have a curfew, but I had the curfew. They were just, I have 3 little brothers. So they really felt as though they were really present in my life. And they still are. And so the one thing that I would say is that, yes, it definitely is a balance. Sometimes what I have learned with my own parents is that they just need to say things, to get it off their chest. It doesn't mean, what I've learned is that it doesn't mean that I necessarily have to follow it. And it's sort of I've been more courageous about just not following their, if I think differently, then I will say it, and I will do differently. Whereas in college, to be totally frank with you, I still was I respect my parents' opinions. And And I think that I was more willing to sort of heed that and prioritize that when I was in college. So I don't really think I have a good answer for you, because I feel as though I'm just sort of coming into this understanding in my 30s, my late 30s, that it's okay to say, okay, mom and dad, I hear you, but, and then turn and do what's best for me. So I don't think I feel guilty, because I don't feel like I'm really answering your question, because I know you're trying to figure out what that balance is when you go to college. Like, how do I balance my overprotective parents with pursuing my own identity, my own understanding of the world? And I think that it's definitely a delicate balance, and I don't feel as though there's a standardized sort of answer that I could really give you, other than to just constantly be maybe in conversation with your parents about allowing them to voice their concern, respecting it, but still taking ownership of your decisions and what's best for you.
More of like a rant than a question. I just put it out there. So thank you for.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a real challenge that so many of us face, and I just want to bounce off Lindsay. I totally understand how you feel. It feels like I'm in shackles, especially when I was younger, and I'm just like, I want to do this, but my parents won't let me, so sorry. Something that worked for me is that actions speak louder than words. My parents have passed on a mindset called a fixed mindset to me, and it's a scarcity mindset. It's I rather when it comes to like fight or flight, you fly. You go as far away from the situation as possible. And a fixed mindset really got me stuck in this type of thinking that's like, that my circumstances will always define how it's going to be, right? Whereas something that I had to learn, actually, I'm currently in my late 20s. I had to learn in my mid 20s, so not that long ago. It's opposite. It's a growth mindset, and the growth mindset, it's turning your I wish this, like I wish I wasn't this, I wish I was more this, into what if, and taking a look at your problems into opportunities, right? And so through harnessing a growth mindset, and into my 20s, my mom was still as controlling. I'm in Connecticut and my mom's in New York City, and she's just as controlling. I realized that once I take my words and put them into action and show her the result of it, she slowly realized that maybe I know what I'm doing. Maybe just because she brought me to America, it doesn't mean that I turned into this like wild American version of what she thinks teens were, or teens are, and how Americans are, right? It stems from a place of fear in their hearts because they are so new. I'm actually an immigrant as well, but I view, but because I grew up here, I view America through a very different lens than my parents. But I understand that no matter how mad I get at them, I learned that I have to forgive them, because their words, even though it's very, very hurtful, they stem from a place where they care, as hard as it is to swallow. I hope that does help. I think we have another question as well. It's how do you balance between living the lifestyle you want and doing the work you want? And it's followed up with having to prove that they belong in a workplace, and advice to acknowledge sexism but not let it control you. Would it be okay if I just continue, since I have balancing between the lifestyle I want and doing the work you want. I feel like when I first graduated, there was no lifestyle I wanted, mostly because I realized that because I'm in my 20s, I have to make sure that my first job, that my supervisors knew that I am willing to work hard, and so I wish I learned how to balance my life between my social and my professional life a lot better. I didn't. And I'm still struggling to do that right now, right? Has everyone heard of imposter syndrome? Is that something that's in everyone's vocabularies? So imposter syndrome, for those of you who don't know, it's just like feeling like you're a fraud and that you got here by mistake, and they made a hiring mistake, or they made an admissions mistake, and now you have to like pretend that everything is great, but on the inside you're just like, oh gosh, I don't belong here. I'm still experiencing it here. I'm the youngest member of my team. I'm on the leadership team. I'm 27 with a bachelor's degree from a state school. My 3 other coworkers are on a leadership team. At least have a double master's degree, and the other 2 have a PhD. And they're also well into their 30s. So imposter syndrome and feeling qualified to do my work, it runs really, really deep. And so at times I still struggle, once again, where I'm like, oh, shoot, I should probably work extra hours as opposed to, spending time with my dog, with my family. But I'm learning. I recognize that this is a problem, and I'm learning. And day after day, I realize that this imposter syndrome thing I have going on, it's implemented by myself. I created a mold for myself that I have to fit. And everyone else is like, you're doing a great job. And so they are like, you're not an imposter, you belong here. And in regards to proving that I'm being qualified, yeah, I think I just answered that. And advice to acknowledge sexism, not let it control you. Being at an institution that's ran by white males, especially rich white males, it is very, very hard. And with my colleagues being also white males, it is exceptionally hard to find a place to speak, especially when it comes to power dynamics. But I realize that the way that you treat yourself and the way that you present yourself, it's going to reflect on the way that others treat you and the way that others speak to you. And I had to learn it the hard way. I was always very shy, very awkward. And once I realized that, you know what, maybe I'm an imposter. And actually on top of that, this imposter, this mold that I'm supposed to fit in isn't made for me. So I'm just gonna be me. And once I realized that, I realized that there's this table and there wasn't a chair for me. So I'm just gonna pull up my own dang chair. And that's what I did. And I feel like once I spoke more and more, people started to realize that, oh, maybe she does have something to say. So that was, and of course I still battle with racism and sexism in the institution that I work at. But I have to learn to just not take everything personally.
I have a question actually to go off what Shu Yi, what you were saying, I guess, because I'm kind of like at an internship right now, and it's kind of like a corporate environment. So I'm like just wondering how would you like cope with, I'm there like because I want to be able to like represent like the Asian American group of people. I actually got to this internship because the gap year program I'm doing called Year Up. So I just I could really relate to a lot of the things you were saying. Like I just feel so vulnerable and out of place there sometimes, and I feel like I have to keep working and I don't know. I just I'm asking I'm just wondering how would you deal with that, and something that I'm still struggling with, and my internship is coming to an end, and I just felt from day one, I've been really hardworking, and but yeah, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer quickly because I feel like I'm taking up too much stage room. I would definitely say that it takes time. When I was in my early 20s, I was spineless. I was the equivalent of a yes man. So I was a yes woman. Anything they say, they're like, get me coffee, do this project in a day, even though it would only take a week. I'm like, okay, I'll do it, just so I can prove myself. I feel like over time, once I established a foundation of who I was, and realizing that I may not be the best, but as long as I do my best, that's what counts. And also the most important thing that I learned is that my worth does not come from anything else but what but myself, right? My worth does not come from my boss says, how much money I make, my GPA, once again. And so once you establish a solid foundation of who you are, like who is Jennifer as a person, right? What are your ideals? What are your values? And then from there, you know yourself, and so when you go out there in the world, when someone says something about you, and it's really, I know for me, I take things so personally. When they're like, well, gosh, I can't even think of an example, but when people say things about me, I'm just like, well, actually, you don't really know me, and you can think that, but I'm just gonna go with the people that actually believe me and support me. And so you definitely have to find your support system and your circle, in addition to building your foundation of who you are. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Joanna.
Earlier you mentioned like your GPA and like how like in the workforce, like you're wondering if like people would want you, etc. Like how important like is GPA coming out of college? Like say you're looking for a job, or should you be building your internships, for example, and building your experience prior to that?
Lindsay, do you want to tackle it, and then I can go?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Joanna, I think that's a great question. How important is your GPA? I think fortunately, in the current context, I think it is sort of important to have that. Just, you know, a lot of companies, a lot of people when they look at resumes, they screen for GPA. But I would say, as someone who frankly had a low GPA in college, I would say that, and I think that Shu Yi, you mentioned it earlier, it's so important to make sure you have you have a holistic sort of application, right? And so Joanna, you had mentioned like how important is it to have, you know, previous experiences to support that GPA. I think that that's incredibly important. I think that you should always look for leadership opportunities within whatever space you are interested in to engage, to sort of support your application, essentially.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Lindsay said. Graduating with a 2.7, I realized that my options were very, very limited, and I had to start somewhere. When you believe that you can, that you deserve a job despite your GPA, you're halfway there already, right? And you have to have the thought process that, you know what, that honestly, as someone who also hires, I hire a lot of college students and master's degree students and PhD candidates for my program, and GPA is really important, yes, but also at the end of the day, interviewers, especially if you want to work at a place that has good culture and good environment, and that's really important nowadays, especially during COVID, it really exposes the gaps in organizations and corporations. You want your interviewer to also ask and to know more about how are your time management skills, because your 4.0, it's like, okay, well, you can just be taking classes and studying all day and not do any extracurricular activities, right? It's like, how are your time management skills? How are your organization skills? How compassionate are you, right? It's like, why, what's your purpose? Why do you want to work for our company? And so there are students who are getting their PhD here and that are just 4.0s and are super impressive on paper, but also when I interview them, they're like robots, right? And then there are students who are also 4.0s that are absolutely amazing. And honestly, I feel like as somebody who is in a position that reads a lot of applications and also does a lot of hiring, for me personally, I echoing what I said earlier, it's resilience that I look for. For those who haven't faced failure, it's really hard for me to hire them or accept them because everyone is going to get the door slammed in their face. What I care about is how are you going to get up, or if you're going to get up.
Also to like piggyback off of my like own question, how would like, since you're an employer yourself, do you think it like matters like how prestigious your school is? I don't know, because like how's like society and like everyone just looks at like a more prestigious school being as more successful per se. Like as you're someone who's attended both state and an Ivy, like what would you say is your opinion on that?
Yeah, and I can only speak from my personal experience. I feel like prestige, it counts, yes, but it's not everything. What prestige tells me is how privileged you were, the majority of how privileged you were. Because at a higher education context, a lot of the seats go to students who can pay for it, and a lot of the seats who goes to students who have the ability to get tutoring and have the ability to get to go to all these summer programs and whatnot, right? So when I take a look at an application, I would take a look at the school and it's like, oh, they went to Stanford. Great. But a lot of it is that what Stanford can't tell me is your writing ability, how thoughtful you are. And that's when your cover letter comes into play. That's when your application comes into play. I actually didn't go to an IB for, I work in one, and I was telling Lindsay earlier that I'm actually applying to grad school right now. I'm applying to Harvard, and I'm still facing. I feel like 17-year-old Shu Yi, where I'm just like, am I good enough? Like my 2.7, like, can you see past that? And I realized that there are so many employers, there are so many institutions, and also these employers and institutions that I want to work for and be at, they're the ones that are going to overlook my 2.7 and go in and say, what have you done to dedicate yourself towards your passion of serving underrepresented students? And also your GPA tells me how you were when you were 18 to 21, right? People make mistakes. And when you're 18 to 21, you haven't fully developed. Or you're slowly developing into the person that you want to be and the person that you are. So GPA-wise, it is important, yes, but it is not the entire picture.
Thank you.
I think we have another question. Lindsay, do you want to go? And then I can.
I wanted to actually, I know Jennifer had asked a question about her internship, and I just wanted to add my 2 cents very quickly. So Jennifer, so I have a short-term and a long-term answer for you, at least just based on my own experience. It's okay for you to approach your boss or whoever manages your internship to talk to them about how you're feeling in your work context. You have to be strategic, though, about the way that you actually frame that. For one, you have to make sure, and if I was managing someone, this would not necessarily matter to me per se, but in a potentially white-dominated industry, it's really important that you come from the perspective of, so I've already established my track record of success with this company. And here are maybe some boundary, maybe don't frame it as like a boundary, but here's some, communication, maybe you do call it boundaries, communicative boundaries that you want to talk about, or how to receive feedback, something around communication. But it's absolutely okay for you to have that conversation with the person who's managing you. That's something that I'm just learning, again, like through my own experiences, that it's okay to have these types of conversations with your manager, but you do have to be strategic about the way that you frame it. And if you come from an authentic place of, hey, I want to contribute, I want to do better, I'm excited about this work, I don't think that there's anybody who wouldn't actually listen to somebody when they are excited about the work, when they are eager to contribute to the value of the company. My long-term answer is, one of the questions that Jenny asked was, what are some advice to acknowledge sort of sexism, or maybe the stereotypes that they have around Asian American women. It's a challenging sort of context. There's a lot of institutionalized racism, discrimination. I think that that's definitely coming out in the current context of Black Lives Matter. We're more willing, right, to talk about race and how that impacts different opportunities. I think one of the most exciting things about the current context with Black Lives Matter is that a lot of what's coming out of this movement is, look, we need to literally burn down these institutionalized structures. We need to start over from scratch because it is not based on a foundation of equity, justice, and love. And I think that the more that we can keep pushing that dialogue, keep pushing some of the changes that need to be enacted in many of our institutions. I mean, again, this is a long-term answer because this is something that can't be rectified overnight. I think that if we keep pushing for sort of that foundation and to rebuild our systems based on that, then you can, hopefully sexism, at least when my daughter, who's 7 years old now, will not be something that she has to grapple with in the next, when she enters the workforce, or any of you for that matter. And so whatever we can do to sort of support that long-term trajectory, I mean, I'm personally all for it. I know that Michelle had a question. Can you talk about how girls can explore majors or career paths? I think that's a great question. And Michelle, for me, I think it would just come down to, again, just knowing your interests and who you are and what you want to explore, because let's be honest, in the context of college or even graduate school, you don't have a lot of time to make those decisions. All of you have the luxury potentially of more time because you are already starting to think about this. And so think about the sort of impact that you foresee yourself having, whether it be, in finance and education and nonprofit world. Just really think about, like, where do you see yourself in 10, in 20 years? What sort of impact do you want to have? Write that down on paper. And then from there, once you know what's important to you, then start going out and strategically identifying those industries or those career paths and reach out to women and men. Reach out to people in that field to begin and ask them for informational interviews. It's okay to do that. Ask them for 10 to 20 minutes of their time. Hey, I want to learn more about what you do on a daily basis. Ask them if maybe you could spend some time even learning from them, maybe a day you shadow them, for a day. But this gives you real life, real time exposure to an industry or a career path. Or if you're more, I know that this is obviously the time of COVID, so you can't go out and actually spend the day with somebody, but even reading about it, engaging with someone over Zoom, I think are powerful ways to understand how to learn about different career paths or majors even.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I just want to touch on the majors part. When it comes to students who are new to Yale, they would just ask, what did you major in? I'm trying to figure out my major in XYZ. I would honestly ask them to don't do what I did. Unless you truly know this is what you want to major in. I would say to go undeclared. The beauty of being undeclared is that, hey, you don't need to declare your major, at least for a lot of institutions across America. You don't have to declare your major until sophomore year, right? And I switched my major actually junior year to human bio to get a little more of the anthropological side of sciences. But if you go undeclared, you don't have these core classes that you're stuck to, right? You have this ability to discover and dive into each and every different classes, like the humanities. The humanities are amazing, and I feel like humanities are so underrepresented. Humanities teaches us how to think, how to ask the right questions, how to tackle these questions as well, and also it teaches us the amalgamation of human history and human thought. And this is so important, and I wish I took more classes in humanities. And after you discover all of that, and also have information interviews with seniors, right? What are your core classes? How are these classes? What professors did you enjoy? What professors did you not enjoy? And honestly, sneak into a class. If it's a big lecture class, of course. Don't try to sneak into a smaller class. Of course, this is when you do not have class. Because this is a way for you to actually firsthand understand the information and learn what it really takes to be a bio major, to a chem major, to be a history major or whatnot. And so that is definitely my advice for those who are looking to pursue or trying to figure out what their major is. And when it comes to career, my most hated question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? They ask me still, and I'm just like, I don't know, but I know what I want to do. I want to stay in the realm of education. when I was 9, I wanted to be a flower. Mom's like, no, you're being a doctor. And so I feel like when it comes to, and at this age, people ask you, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What I told my sisters, because they're your ages, I have 2 younger sisters, I ask questions like, do you like to be a part of a team, or do you like to work individually? Do you like to think big picture, or are you more detail oriented? Do you like to be in front and center, or do you like to be in the back end? Because these questions help, because if you ask like, what do you want to do? They're like, I would have never thought I want to be a program manager, but if you ask me these questions like, do you want to be in the front? I'm like, yeah, I'm really extroverted. I really like to talking to people. And I also really, really like creating things in curriculum and programming and pulling strings from like the big picture. That translates to program manager. So think backwards when it comes to choosing a job, and honestly, just go on LinkedIn and search up jobs and take a look at the descriptions. And from there, I feel like that would also help you narrow down like your job search and process.
Thanks, Shu. If it's okay, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Sophia put in the chat box, and how concrete Sophia is with the language that she's using to describe her accomplishments. And this just goes back to what Jennifer was asking earlier about being an intern and just wanting sort of a seat at the table. It's taken me so long to understand that it's not bragging when you talk about your accomplishments, because bragging somehow there's sort of a negative connotation. At least this is for some reason, I don't know why I associate bragging with something negative. You're just stating a fact. When you talk about the fact that you were, I don't know, you saved the company X number of dollars through this new initiative that you launched, or you were valedictorian of your high school, whatever your accomplishment, what it says on your resume is not bragging, it's stating fact. So be unapologetic. When you sit down in front of your boss, when you sit down in front of your professor and you say, like Sophia said, you have to advocate for yourself. When you say that I deserve, first of all, you don't have to say this, you deserve a seat at the table. Okay, let's just make that very clear right now. You deserve to be at that table. But you're just stating a fact, and that's all it is when you talk about your accomplishments. So never be afraid. Don't be humble. Don't be humble. I learned this the hard way. The one thing, don't be humble, girls, because you are amazing in what you do and what you have accomplished up until this point, and don't be afraid to say that out loud. I'm going to get off the soapbox, but just don't. Be proud.
On that note, thank you so much. I think that we have like a few minutes left. I want to give a really big thank you to Shu Yi and Lindsay for taking the time to speak with us. And on that very empowering note as well, I want to thank all of you for attending. If any of you have any other questions too, feel free to email Aspire and we can send our questions over to our panelists, or maybe we could have you reach out to panelists directly. I can provide email addresses as well if that's appropriate. Again, I want to thank Shu Yi and Lindsay so much for taking the time to speak with us.